Hello, everyone. I'm Christos Xenofondos. I'm the Assistant Director at the Rhode Island DOT and Chair of AASHTO's Committee on Performance-Based Management. A warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for making time to attend our webinar today and to share your reflections on the AASHTO conference in Providence in December that brought together three of AASHTO's great committees: data management, planning, and performance-based management. AASHTO's Committee on Performance-Based Management, the leadership and the AASHTO Technical Service Program in cooperation with Federal Highway is very pleased to sponsor this Transportation Performance Management webinar series. This is actually our 15th bi-monthly Transportation Performance Management webinar, or TPM is for short. Through this partnership, we bring you a host of engaging content on a variety of TPM topics. Of course, we welcome your ideas and suggestions for future webinar topics and your participation both as presenters and as attendees. For more information on this webinar series, please visit tpm-portal.com and click on TPM Webinar Series under Events in the main menu. Links to the video and slides from today's webinar, as well as archive content from previous webinars, are posted on the AASHTO TPM portal. Before I talk about our topic for today's webinar, just a reminder, please make sure to mute yourself when you are not talking during the webinar today. Of course, raise your hand or use the chat when you want to add to the conversation, which we welcome all the time. Next slide, please. So I think next. Today's topic is reflecting, before the agenda, sorry. Before that. So today's topic is reflecting on the AASHTO 22 Conference on Performance-Based Management, Planning and Data, Takeaways and Next Steps. As the host state for the conference, which took place in early December of 2022, I want to extend a thank you to the organizing committee for doing all of the heavy lifting and bringing us such a great program. Thank you also to all of the folks on this call who are able to join us for the conference and for your participation. I hope you will actively engage in the discussion today and share your learnings with your peers so that our next event is even more successful. I also want to thank and recognize the leadership of RIDAD for their support and continuing to advance a culture of performance management within our agency. From our committee's perspective, the December conference was a huge success. But this success was only possible because of the work and support that we received from our federal partners. Thank you for this continued support of our initiatives and look forward to many more partnerships, partner events in the future. I know that everyone is eager to hear the reflections, but let me single out some people who have done so much for our committees on the conference. The chair of our organizing committee, Ryan Huff, our program managers from AASHTO, Matt, Kyla, and Penelope, our conference support staff in Karen and Fred, and SpyPort partners for their overall support of the conference. A huge thank you to all of you. We really couldn't have done this without you. For those who were not able to join us in December, I want to encourage you to engage with us today in thinking about what we can do to bring you to the table within this community and to the next conference. I hope the webinar today will begin the process of translating the insights and highlights from the conference into action. That may mean many things, such as future webinar mini-series on topics of interest, synthesis of full research proposals in areas where you want to know more or where we have identified gaps, peer exchanges to share knowledge within our peers, or new resources to help you with your TPM planning, asset management, and data needs. Next slide now, Lori, please. So now to the agenda. First up today, Mishoni Smith-Jackson from Federal Highway will provide a brief welcome and Federal Highway perspectives on today's topic. Next, Matt Harty will present an introduction from AASHTO and will take us on a tour of the conference site where you can find conference recordings, slides, and other materials. After that, the conference planning led Ryan, Chair Ryan Huff from the Nebraska DOT and the Committee on Performance-Based Management Professional Development Coordinating Subcommittee Chair will provide a summary from the Planning Committee. We will then hear a series of short reflections on each of the conference tracks. Deanna Belton from the Minnesota DOT will talk about the TPM track. Jessica Griffin from New Mexico DOT will provide her insights on the planning track. Matt Hoprick from Iowa DOT will reflect on the asset management sessions. And Luanne Doherty from the Nebraska DOT will round out our reflections with insights of the data track. As we go through the reflections, please enter any questions you may have in the chat or suggestions as well after the reflections and your own reflections at the same time. We'll jump into a discussion with the presenters and audience. And I will wrap us up with the next step and where we go from here. So with that, let's start the program. And I'm going to turn it over to Mish. Mish, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Christos. We are so pleased to be a part of this partnership with AASHTO and bringing these performance management and asset management webinar series to the transportation community. For those of you that I haven't met yet, I'm Mishoni Smith-Jackson, the team leader for performance and asset management at the Federal Highway Administration. First, I'd like to congratulate AASHTO and the planning team for an amazing 2022 conference on performance-based management, planning, and data. That's a mouthful. But I also want to thank Christos for inviting the performance management, planning, and data communities to participate in the conference in beautiful Providence, Rhode Island. And we actually had great weather in December, which was wonderful. Your hospitality was tremendous and delicious. In the spirit of partnership that you brought together these disciplines for the conference, highlighting topics ranging from implementation to sustaining performance management, planning for resiliency, and leading edge of technology. All three of these committees play a role in transforming data to information into knowledge and wisdom, and the collaboration and diversity of topics and speakers really raised the level for all of us. There were over a dozen FHWA representatives in attendance at the conference from all parts of our organization, there to listen and share with stakeholders. This was one of the first opportunities that we've had in the last few years to have FaceTime and one-on-one interactions with all of you. Some of the most important takeaways for me were around the shared challenges amongst the different subcommittees and the opportunity to build relationships. And now I'm looking forward to the reflections from all of the speakers that we have today. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt Hardy from AASHTO for his welcome.
All right, thanks, Mish. Matt Hardy here. I'm wearing my conference swag and everything, the awesome jackets that we had for some of the bike tours. We had the water bottles, which were cool, and lots of pens. Got lots of pens left over, so good conference swag. So next time, hopefully, if you weren't able to make it, you can make it, because we do some fun things there. A lot of connections were made, a lot of interaction among everybody. So I got to unzip this because it's a little bit tight. So anyways, I'm Matt Hardy, Senior Program Director for Planning and Performance Management here at AASHTO, and just wanted to sort of talk about some of the conference proceedings that we have. So for all those that couldn't make it, we tried to make it so that you could engage with the conference, and I'm going to go over that. Also, a big thanks to FHWA for this ongoing webinar series. This is going to continue in 2023 through the great partnership that we have with FHWA and Mishoni Smith-Jackson and Nelson Hoffman. So thank you very much to them. They're also providing some support and some funding to do some TAM peer exchanges, as well as some a TPM peer exchange this calendar year. So we'll keep the good stuff that we had going last year going this year. Let me quickly share my screen. Just give me 1 second here. All right. And if you do have any thoughts or ideas for webinar topics, ones that you want to sort of focus in on, dive into, we are welcome to, we would welcome you to provide us with those ideas. Please put them in the chat. and we will capture those because we have to sort of fill out every month. We have a webinar in partnership with FHWA. In the even month, it's transportation performance management, and in the odd months, it is asset management. So we have 11 more months, I guess 10 more months to go this year. So if you have any ideas or topics that you want covered, please let us know. So going back to sort of Providence, one thing that we really try to take to heart was to document as best we could using the technology that we had, so that those that could not make it to Providence could sort of still participate and learn from others. One of my big mantras is sharing is caring, what we learned in kindergarten. So this is our way of providing back for those that could not make it. So just as a reminder, we have our transportation management hub at transportationmanagement.us. From there, you can access our TAM portal and our TPM portal and our enterprise risk management portal. If you go to the TPM portal, it will come up to this website here, and right here front and center is where you can access all the great information that we have from the Providence conference. So you click on that, and of course I think others are using it at this point, but this is we have documented as best we can all the information from the conference, from the individual session. As a reminder, this is the conference at a glance. This is how our overall conference was set up. We had workshops on Monday and Friday. We had technical sessions Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we tried something really new and innovative and different on Wednesday called Choose Your Own Conference Adventure Tracks. For each of these sessions, as best we could, we tried to sort of document what took place. So we have the slide decks, and when appropriate and where available, we have recordings of those sessions. And I say when appropriate because we couldn't do recordings of some of the offsite workshops and everything. It just wasn't, we weren't there yet. But if you go to the website, you can download that overall conference at a glance. And then you can click on day 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and you can access all the information that we have. So for each one of these, like the workshop on complete streets that we did in partnership with FHWA, as this comes up. This is what happens when you do things real time. I'm going to go back. Oops. So for each one of the sessions for each day, we have a link to what was to the actual session. It was working before. But for each of the sessions, we do have the slide decks, so you can download those. Here we go. So we have a description of that session. We have the slide decks, all the presentations. So that's one of the big requests that we get is, can I get a copy of the slide deck? And it's like, absolutely, here it is. And what we also try to do this year is to record the sessions as easily as we could. So some of the sessions we did a Zoom recording, so a recording of the presenter, and then we also have a recording from the audience perspective from the actual room. So if we have a recording, it's available as well. And this is kind of what they look like. So each one of those sessions again was recorded. We have the slide decks, nice recordings as well. So hopefully you go to the website and kind of take a look at everything that we did. And if we go back, the one that I was most excited to kind of record were these Choose Your Own Conference Adventure sessions. So these were individual 30-minute sessions organized by topical tracks. So every 30 minutes we would have people stand up and kind of switch rooms if they wanted to, or stay in their own room and continue on with the next session. So you were able to get breadth or depth, right, for particular topics. And we got lots of comments from people saying, hey, we can't go to all of these. How do I choose? And I said, that's okay, because we're going to try to record these as best we can, and we have done that here. So again, this is how we have documented that. This is our first iteration of doing conference proceedings. We are also working with SpyPond partners to do a more narrative of it. So we had people taking notes and jotting down key questions or sort of research ideas, that sort of thing as well. And we're in the process of synthesizing all of that information and putting it into an overall report that then each of the three committees, right, the Committee on Planning, Performance-Based Management, and Data can use to help further their activities for the next year as a result of this conference. So that's it. Again, just to sort of summarize, if you go to transportationmanagement.us, that's the hub for all of our three portals, please go there. And if you click on the TPM Portal hub, you can also go there at tpm-portal.com. And then you click on at the very top here, check out the slides and the recordings, click on that, and you can download and access all the information that we have for this conference. So with that, I am done, and I'm going to turn it over to Ryan Huff, who's going to give some reflections and discussions about his perspective as the chair of this planning committee. And he's not wearing his jacket like I was. I'm very disappointed. He said, it's like I'm from the 80s. I said, absolutely.
I wore mine this weekend, Matt, so just calm down. I wear it all the time. It's an awesome coat. In fact, I looked up the brand because it fits so well. But as Matt and Christos sort of talked about, I'm Ryan Huff with the Nebraska DOT. I'm the chair of the Coordinating Subcommittee on Professional Development and Technical Services for our Committee on Performance-Based Management. With that, I sort of volunteered to become the planning chair for our conference. As Matt kind of pointed out and showed you, kind of gave you a quick tour of our conference. There was a lot of work put into this, a lot of time by all of the planning committee members. As we begun this journey, about a year prior to the conference itself, we thought that, from the beginning, we wanted to bring these three groups together: the Performance-Based Management Group, the Data and Management and Analytics Group, along with the Planning Group, because many of these groups sort of have sort of shared interests. We all kind of share some of these responsibilities. We find ourselves crossing paths with each other all the time, and so we felt like this was a great group set of committees to get together and talk about just sort of shared interests, topics of shared interest. So with regard to the topics, early on we were discussing how might we sort of approach this, how do we develop our set of topics. The group kind of came together, I guess Matt, Christos, and I, and said we need to probably develop a planning group that sort of covers all three of these areas. So we worked with that group, and with that, the help of that group, we were able to develop a survey, which engaged with each of the three committees to kind of get feedback on what type of topics we wanted to hear on. If you go through to the website Matt talked about, you'll see a lot of topics on data literacy and data visualization, TPM and equity, data science, how to use that to plan your program, making the strategic connections between all these three areas. You'll see a lot of overlap in all the topics that we've laid out. So through that, we decided that we wanted to make the conference kind of a mix and match of different types of experiences. You'll see workshops, you'll see panel discussions, technical sessions. We had a thing called Choose Your Own Conference Adventure, which was really fun. What was more fun was the unconference. That I don't know that we were able to record many of those, but it was a really fun opportunity for us to sort of explore topics that we wanted to talk more about later in the week. There was also many technical tours, and along with that, business meetings. So I encourage you to go and check out the website. It's really well done. Matt and his team put a lot of work into pulling together notes and recording things, and it was a very dense conference. A lot of complaints about I couldn't get to it all. There was too much, but this run of show, or this website Matt has sort of previewed for us, gives us access to all the things that were covered during the conference. And so with that, we're going to turn it over to several of our, I call them champions for each of these three committees, and they're kind of going to do an overview of each of the tracks. First up is, I believe, Deanna Belden from Minnesota DOT.
Yeah, hi everyone. I was involved in the conference planning committee on the performance management track with the Minnesota DOT here, and I found that the resource on the website amazing because my notes were a little bit more scarce than I cared for. Can you go to the next slide, Lori? So I put my reflections in 3 buckets here, and they aren't completely standalone, but this was the easiest way I could think of. We started the week with a TPM implementation workshop, and it was what have we learned and what does the future hold for transportation performance management? And oftentimes that means the federal measures, but we go beyond that as well. And so starting with this, because these are the things that all of the state DOTs are doing because of the federal requirements, but many of us are doing more. And we talked about the resources that are available for folks, the practitioners in TPM with the TPM Portal, the webinar series, and the newsletter. Then we heard from multiple DOTs with short presentations about what they are doing. We heard from 3 about their experiences with the implementation of the federal measures. And we heard about some innovations. For example, Utah is integrating performance, risk, and asset management practices. And then they did another presentation in the other area that I'll go over next. But West Virginia is strengthening connections between planning and programming and performance. And it was an all-day workshop with different formats. So we had a fishbowl format about the future vision for TPM, where folks went up and gave a little short blurb about what they were thinking, and then went to sit back down. And I'm looking forward to the notes on that because my notes are scarce on that. Moving forward section, Iowa DOT talked about sustaining and advancing TPM and going beyond the federal requirements to include employee engagement, managing strategic objectives, and a resilience work group. And North Dakota is utilizing MIRE, M-I-R-E, model inventory of roadway elements and analysis tools to assist with setting safety targets. They're also evaluating how well measures are telling the department's story and using TPM to assist with decision-making, what we all are hoping to do who are in the TPM space. Kansas has a new pavement online tool that allows the user to step into the role of pavement steward for the state. And Connecticut is looking at target setting maturity models with the increasing complexity. The idea with increasing complexity and data intensity comes increased explanatory power. In this bucket of TPM implementation, I looked at a few of the sessions that were not just the Monday workshop. We had a couple of sessions on effective target setting sessions that were based on the results from an NCHRP project that produced a guide for transportation practitioners on this topic. It was broken into 2 parts. One were the analytic methods for setting targets for the national performance measures, and the second part was highlighting process issues such as different philosophies associated with target setting and effective practices in target setting. And then also one of the Wednesday workshops was to deepen the understanding on target setting. And then we also had a session on coordinating measures that matter, acknowledging that many or most states have not only the federal measures, but also what we would call local measures to manage their state system, since we all manage more than just the federal system. Now moving to, so these I would characterize as stuff we all do, but looking at what we're doing and best practices and innovations within that space, but then going to what I call these emerging areas where we heard presentations from the Minnesota DOT on our transportation equity initiative and key metrics that we are looking to use to help track and improve equity with our system and our projects. And Utah DOT and the quality of life framework that they are using now that includes better mobility, good health, connected communities, and a strong economy, where they have measures under each of these categories that as a whole could reflect on improving quality of life. For emerging areas, we also heard from the University of Minnesota on access to destinations, where they are leading a pooled fund project for accessibility evaluation and also using that data for a project in Appalachia. So gave an overview of measuring accessibility and why destination access is important, and it's because transportation exists to connect people to destinations that matter. So a new kind of measurement that many of us are starting to use. We heard about the use of complete trip data. FHWA with Rich Taylor is looking at being able to look at a complete trip from, door to his destination. And so we're looking forward to hearing more about the possibilities with that. And also project prioritization is under emerging area, not because we don't prioritize projects, but because particularly Virginia's Smart Scale is looking at ways they're in their 5th round of using Smart Scale and can screen and score transportation projects of any mode. And it includes accessibility, which was particularly interesting to me, also safety, congestion, economic development, environmental quality, and land use. So that was interesting presentation too, considered an emerging area. Then I guess when it went an area here of like exciting, more exciting, and most exciting for me, envisioning the future. We heard from a project looking at, okay, sorry, now where are my notes? Planning for technological disruption, case studies on that that were put together for our the World Road Association. And then we heard about these moonshots, where a vision for the next era of transportation and the idea of community-centered transportation system focused on connecting communities, moving people and goods, and meeting customer needs at all scales. And I didn't in the presentation find something one time, my notes were actually better than what was on here, that Julie Lorenz talked about Dwight Eisenhower's vision of prosperity, that I couldn't actually find exactly what I wanted online, but having a vision of prosperity and then a method to get there. And it was one of the methods was the interstate, and thinking about what do we want to do for people, and then what can transportation do to help that. So this seemed really exciting for the future, going beyond our just maybe traditional type of measurements that we've done in the past. And this set of presentations suggested some moonshots, like what if we make aggressive progress toward Vision Zero? Could we reduce fatalities to post-World War II levels? Wow, and what if we work with partners to reduce the share of households who cannot afford basic survival costs? Wow, we could close some gaps in healthcare and transportation, and that would be really exciting. And what if we change how we operate and manage the transportation system? Could we light up the interstate as corridors for broadband and next-gen technologies? So this was a set of 2 presentations that was about the vision and then implementing it. And I know this got many of us very jazzed up. So these are my reflections from the TPM track. Lots of great stuff going from, let's do best practices and learn for the kind of stuff we're all doing, to, looking toward the future, emerging areas, and then even more envisioning of the future. Thanks.
Okay.
Jessica, sorry.
Okay,
Jessica.
thanks,
Right
Deanna.
here, Jessica. Thanks.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm the Planning Division Director for the New Mexico Department of Transportation. And this was my first AASHTO conference, and I really enjoyed it and enjoyed meeting all the different DOTs and FHWA folks, and of course the AASHTO folks. I helped organize or do some work on the Complete Streets workshop, so I was actually doing a lot of talking and moderating and didn't take notes, but I did hear a lot about how states are in different places with complete streets and all the different kind of issues and aspects of that, such as freight, land use equity, politics. So in Florida, they call it context-based design instead of complete streets because of the politics. And then also a lot of the rural versus urban kind of issues. And we talked about that with FHWA, that, it'd be great to have some kind of rural state complete street examples rather than just kind of, states like Florida or New York or New Jersey. And then on Tuesday morning, there was the safe systems approach, which I also heard a lot about at TRB, which I also attended. So I kind of have notes from a lot of notes from both conferences. And a great quote I heard in the Safe Systems session is that in road injury epidemiology, kinetic energy is the pathogen. And I thought that was pretty profound. And Safe Systems is all about accommodating human mistakes and keeping impacts on human bodies at tolerable levels. And there are 5 elements that go beyond just the 4 E's that we're all kind of used to, including safe road users, safe vehicles, safe speeds, safe roads, and post-crash care. The other takeaway for me was the observation that median income correlates with pedestrian safety. And so this is really, kind of hits home with me in New Mexico. I attended the session on scenario planning, and that was really interesting. There were several states presented. Washington DOT and Kansas DOT had some great comments, such as balancing risk and value. What's the likelihood of something happening, and what's the value in planning for it? And Washington DOT is using scenario planning for resiliency to help with adjusting to uncertainty, and that it's a way for the public to engage and for the DOT to demonstrate the effects of various policy choices. And it facilitates discussion of controversial issues. Kansas DOT secretary, she's great. There are no rules for scenario planning, and there is a bias towards action. The most sustainable thing is the one you don't build. So I thought that was pretty profound. And it's really important to do scenario planning before a big initiative like the long range plan, and not do compliance planning, but ask what's stimulating, challenging, and motivating, then focus on that. And she provided an example of there being 20,000 local bridges in Kansas, and DOT gives $250,000 to fix the bridge or $50,000 to remove it. So I thought that was interesting. There was a great session on equity and decision-making and planning processes. A lot of great takeaways there, talking about planning for people and the users of the transportation system, not just for vehicles. And Colorado DOT talked a lot about, it's not just about access to transportation, but the benefits of the transportation. So for example, smooth roads mean a lot more to people who cannot afford car repairs, but we often don't consider those effects when we make decisions. Minnesota DOT is approaching equity in contracting by trying to break larger contracts into smaller contracts that would be more accessible to smaller firms. And also trying to break out of transactional relationships when it comes to public input. So building long-term relationships with underserved communities rather than on a project by project basis. And then a really big concept that all of us mentioned as being really interesting. There was a representative from United Way, and she talked about the ALICE concept, which is asset limited income constrained employees. And 32 states are now using the ALICE framework to determine poverty line by state and the cost of living there, as opposed to using federal poverty requirements. And transportation is a huge driver of cost. So better transportation solutions are critical in urban settings, such as buses and metro, but people are moving outside of central urban areas of employment due to high housing costs, and then they have the high transportation costs. So she talked about needing more TODs in urban centers, but also making it cost effective for people to live further away and commute. And of course, there are a lot of challenges in rural areas because of the heavy reliance on cars and no like transit or other alternatives. And Deanna already talked about the envisioning the future session, which I agree was really good. And I got a lot out of that. And let me see what she didn't. There was a big emphasis on how critical partnerships are. That DOTs are kind of the get it done agencies between states and, between the feds and the locals and tribes. and DOTs working together a lot, and how important it is to have a vision, because you can shovel a lot of money out there and do some good, but if you have a vision and framework, you can accomplish a lot more. I also liked the moonshot concept. Thought that was really, really interesting. And then there was a comment made about implementation and how every DOT director sits in a chair over a trap door. So every state DOT is in a different position when it comes to implementation of, the vision. And then there was a session on data management plans. Iowa DOT has had a consultant help them develop a strategic business data plan. That was pretty interesting. We also talked about EV charging and infrastructure planning around that. I thought it was interesting. Florida DOT is not going to own or operate the EV chargers because there are safety concerns at charging sites, and also they don't have a trained workforce to maintain the site. So they're looking at doing private-public partnerships and partnering with retailers and others. And then the last thing was linking the TAMPs with the resilience improvement plans. And I presented on this with William from Colorado DOT, and all I'll say on that is Colorado DOT is way far ahead of us on this. So look at William's presentation. And then I just wanted to put a plug in for the unconference sessions. I actually did some of the data ones just to kind of get a different perspective instead of just always doing planning stuff, and learned a lot from those sessions. So that's it. Thank you. And now I think it's Matt.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone, or good morning maybe for some of you. My name is Matt Haubrick. I'm with the Iowa Department of Transportation. I chair the AASHTO Subcommittee on Asset Management, and I'm going to share with you a few what I felt are a few of the highlights for those of you that maybe are focused on asset management in your role or just interested in asset management. I kind of half jokingly make the observation that asset management is kind of woven into many of the things that occurred at the conference. Hard to sort of pick out just those few items that are really focused on asset management. But you've heard already from some of my colleagues talking about things like the TPM peer exchange that took place on Monday. I think a number of references to asset management related activities that occurred during that peer exchange, talking about relationships between asset management plans and the performance measures. I think a lot of us are kind of thinking about how we can better use those performance measures to help tell the story, help us understand the condition of our assets, and that's just a critical component of doing good asset management. So a great conversation occurred at that peer exchange on Monday. I'm sure there were fantastic conversations in the other parallel exchanges, but that TPM peer exchange, for those of you that work in the asset management field, would probably be the one to watch for the report on that. Later in the week, on Wednesday, we had a couple of great sessions on Wednesday morning. In fact, there was a whole track as part of the Choose Your Own Conference Adventure series that had a number of sessions related to asset management, including that 3-session track that looked at first the idea of plan coordination, kind of looking across how not only do the DOTs function, but also looking at MPOs, local agencies, federal highway, other players in the world of asset management. We then also had a great session talking about some data related issues for asset management. And then we finished up with that track with a panel discussion about the future of asset management, which I think we had a very engaging conversation in the room about that. So I encourage you to check out those sessions. There was also, as part of that Choose Your Own Conference Adventure series on Wednesday morning, another later session talking about the relationship between transportation asset management plans, or the TAMPs, and the new resilience improvement plans, or the RIPs, that are currently an optional plan, but I think a lot of states are taking a look at implementing or developing a RIP if they haven't already. Thursday, we had a very productive workshop in the morning that was looking at enhancements to the AASHTO digital guide, digital TAM guide, I should say. That's available from the TAM portal, or if you can go to tamguide.com or to the -portal.com and look for the search there for the digital guide. That came out a couple of years ago, and we currently have a project that's looking at making enhancements to that guide. Since it's a digital format, we can add additional case studies, additional materials, add new topics if we need to. So that digital format gives us a lot of flexibility to make continuing enhancements to the guide, and that's what this workshop was focused on. So stay tuned for those enhancements to be coming soon, and we'll look forward to sharing them with those with you all. And want to thank again everyone who participated in that workshop, as I think that was a very valuable use of time. Unfortunately, it meant that I didn't get a chance to participate in the unconference. I heard a lot of great things about unconference, but we had an excellent workshop on Thursday morning. On Friday, we were able to incorporate an asset management peer exchange. So the week actually began and ended with peer exchanges for a lot of us who work in the performance management and asset management realm. That made for a long week, but very enriching and fulfilling to have that opportunity to get together in person and have a discussion with our peers about topics of importance as pertains to asset management. And in particular, the focus of that exchange was on the issue of resilience. And as many of you I'm sure are aware, there were additional requirements related to resilience that were included in the IJA, or bipartisan infrastructure law, that passed last year. And many states were, or I guess it was more than last year, it was 2021 it passed. And there was a lot of efforts on the part of states and our partners at Federal Highway to look at how we could comply with that law and incorporating resilience into our asset management plans. And so that opportunity to get together in December was a great way to talk about what we had been doing or were doing and what we were looking forward to doing with respect to resilience. And we took that opportunity to think ahead about some of the needs that we might have, specifically action steps related to things like research, capacity building, and information sharing that will be coming out of that peer exchange report. So be looking for that. And again, thank you everyone who participated in the peer exchange. And I think a lot of great ideas and information were brought forward there, and looking forward to taking action on those as an asset management community. So that's some of the major takeaways related to asset management. And with that, I'll pass it on to Luanne, I think.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, my name is Luanne Doherty, and I'm the Chief Data Officer for the Department of Transportation in Nebraska. I'm also a member of the Data Management and Analytics Committee and the chairperson for our Outreach and Coordination Subcommittee. The Data Committee was super excited to be invited to this conference, participate, and share our data mission. Monday, we started off with an all-day data literacy workshop where we helped the participants define what their literacy needs, data literacy needs were, defining their audiences, creating training plans, and what type of training would best suit their organization, whether it be online or in person, emails. The Data Committee had a lot of technical and zone of interest sessions that we focused mainly on data for decision making. And that included some visualization sessions, sessions where we talked about how much data do you really need And what do you do with that data you aren't using or reporting on? Is it worth collecting? Also, what percentage of data quality do you need to accomplish your reporting or your measurement? Is 90% good? Is 85%? Because the higher the percentage is, the more expensive it'll be. We had some sessions on creating data strategies and data management plans. What was best for your organization? A lot of good feedback on that. Believe it or not, there are some organizations that don't even have a data management plan or a data strategy. One of our Choose Your Own Adventures was a presentation from the Joint Subcommittee on Data Standards. We got a really good update on what was going on and what standards will be coming out. Friday was an all-day data governance workshop. It was very well attended, and we had a lot of chief data officers that were just brand new to the job. So it was really helpful to them, and it was real helpful to just reconnect with a lot of the other states and finding out what they're doing. Do they even have a data governance effort going? And what do they need to even establish data governance in their organization? Again, it went back to the data literacy. How much training do we need? And is data governance responsible for that effort? What tools is everyone using in their data governance effort? We did a lot of discussion on master data management. Why is that important to an organization? We had some partner sponsors from FHWA, Catch Intelligence, a lot of great state presenters and panel discussions that went on that were, from a data person, kind of exciting. All of our sessions had really good attendance. And in fact, I'm supposed to nudge Matt next time we need bigger rooms. I'm going to hope that the next conference that the data committee is welcomed back, because we still have a lot more to talk about, especially around our 7 core data principles that we would like all the states to know about and kind of adopt. That was about it for the data. I am going to pass this on now to Deanna.
Thanks, Luanne. All right. Thank you to all of the speakers so far, including those who shared their reflections. If all of the participants in this webinar could just put their cameras on and be prepared to share. But as Lori has put it into the chat, if you have comments, questions, anybody on the webinar, you should put them into the chat. And or if you want to just raise your hand, and we can also just have you share by voice as well. I'm going to kick us off. I mean, so the purpose of this part is for us to dialogue with each other based on the reflections, but also just based on our experiences at the conference. And so I'll kick it off and ask you all to think about, did you observe any general trends in terms of practice that you saw at this conference? Like, for instance, Matt Hobrook, you've been going to a lot of conferences over the, last many years. And would you say that at this conference, because, it was one of the first conferences where we gathered since COVID. So, there haven't been that many gatherings before. So we've kind of had a 3-year window, right? Where we didn't have this kind of gathering. Did you notice a trend that said, oh, wow, I saw the industry changing in this way?
That's a really interesting question. I guess, that my immediate kind of thought as you ask about what I observe is kind of a difference. As you mentioned, this is the first time we've had a chance to get a larger group of kind of this audience together since before the pandemic started. And, the thing that I keep noticing is how many new names and faces there are. I think we have all seen a lot of turnover in our agencies and a lot of turnover in positions who are working on these efforts. And this is something that has been talked about a long time, at least in the asset management community, is sort of how do we make efforts sustainable? And we focused a lot on the concept of like executive sustainability. I think I like it was Jessica earlier who mentioned about the comment that the CEOs are all working with a trap door under them or whatever. But that's not so much true for many of us deeper in the agencies, but there's still been a lot of turnover, a lot of new faces, a lot of new people working in roles, and just this need for kind of continuous learning and continuous growing our skill sets and continuing to have opportunities like this for communication to occur, for us to be able to put faces and names together and know who to ask. Tim Hinkle, who many of you might remember from Minnesota DOT, retired last year. He always used to use the phrase phone a friend, which I think came from an old game show. But, the idea of, do you know who to call or who to get a hold of if you have a question, there's something to work on. And, I think that this idea of kind of putting this community together, bringing these 3 AASHTO committees together, was really inspired because there's a lot of brilliant people that are working on these different parts of these efforts, and the opportunity to be able to know those folks and tap into them when we have questions, I think is just tremendously beneficial. So that's probably one big observation I would have. I don't know if that is, I kind of like answered a different question than what you asked me, but hopefully it was somewhat helpful anyway.
All right. How about you, Deanna? Did you notice any kind of trend?
Yeah, for me, okay, it had been 3 years, but I've noted we've been having sessions about emerging and future performance measures. And this was the first time my whole middle section, the future is here. These were examples of DOTs and agencies actually doing these, starting to do these exciting new areas that are so important to all of us with equity and accessibility. And one of the things that was missing from mine was resilience. I know we talked a lot about that, but somehow it didn't make it into my stuff today. So I am noticing a change and a difference.
Yeah. How about you, Jessica?
Actually, sadly, I think one of the trends I heard a lot was just a high vacancy rate across DOTs, and just struggling to, there's all this money coming down from the feds, and just it's really difficult to manage it all with being so short-staffed. Also just the need to have DOT folks who are kind of adaptable and flexible, because there's all these new concepts coming down, equity, resiliency, and for states like New Mexico, we're just now starting to tackle complete streets and Vision Zero and all that. And it's like, you kind of have to have folks who can retrain the brains and learn these new things. And so I found that really, and so I think the idea behind having this joint conference on these different concepts that, even though we're in planning, we also need to know about data, and we need to know about, of course, performance measures, but the TAMP or whatever else. So like being very flexible and adaptable and able to learn some of these new concepts and how to implement them or follow through on them. So this conference was a really good opportunity to learn more about these other things.
Great observation, Jessica. I think the focus on workforce it seems like that is the topic of this, this period that we're in. Luanne, how about you? did you observe any kind of trends?
Yes, one of them is kind of going back to what Jessica was saying, turnover. We've got a lot of new people coming in to all of the agencies, and they don't have that institutional knowledge. So, and they want access to data, but they don't know what data is out there. And so they're wanting their data defined. They're wanting one source of the truth, and so that they can go and do self-serve. A lot of states are running into this, and it was great discussion at the conference about it.
Thanks, Luanne. How about you, Ryan? Any kind of broad trend observations?
I mean, obviously there's a lot of synergies just between the three groups. I was participating mainly in the planning and performance management sessions, but in all of the sessions that I attended, it seemed like equity was a huge topic. I think Jessica mentioned the ALICE data, the asset limited income constrained employed data set that a lot of DOTs are starting to look at, and just how are we adapting or incorporating equity related performance measures into our programs and our decision making. You know, people doing it different ways, but it was something that, you know, up until a few years ago, and none of us were really, at least at my agency, weren't talking very much about. But, you know, go to this conference and it seemed like every single session was talking about it. So I thought that was a really interesting thing, and something that we're, you know, interested in learning more about. And so I think for those that are tuning into this webinar and are thinking about those things, I think there are a lot of good resources you can find on our website that Matt pointed to. So.
Thanks, Ryan. Mish, how about you?
I was just about to raise my hand. I'm a relatively new person, so I don't know if I can necessarily spot trends from the last a conference that this group has had, but I will say that I've been involved in asset management and what we consider performance management at Federal Transit Administration, and there is a lot of similarity in the challenges and the concerns in the transit community, as well as in FHWA and the DOT community. I thought this was kind of almost serendipitous that the data, performance management, asset management, and planning are really also very relevant kind of areas that the transit community is trying to make those connections between in terms of decision making. You know, making sure they're measuring the right things, that they're measuring it the right way, that they're assessing what they measure so that there is information to make better decisions the next time around. So I think that that connectivity is something that is consistent amongst multiple modes and communities, and that this kind of conference really brought together really the hub of the issues that are going to help support, you know, advancing decision making in the future. So I just want to share kind of like the similarities, not necessarily the trends, since I don't have a rich history in this community yet.
Christos, how about you?
Let me unmute and find my camera. So, and for me, and with Lori's help, I've been taking a lot of notes. So let me know when you want me to start taking some of that. But I'm going to go to some of the things that Matt said earlier. Sharing is caring, and really, it's a trend that you know, with Matt's help and with Kaila's and Penelope's was established, you know, through AASHTO. We are bringing people together and brainstorming together and sharing all this knowledge. It's something that, despite the pandemic and what we have gone through without in-person meetings for a while, it was really good to see people come together, even though there were a lot of new faces. But despite the new faces, what I saw was really a lot of gelling of the people around the discussions and around the topics. You know, huge kudos really goes to the planning team for bringing together such an excellent program. So to me, that was something important. the Moonshot Project and bringing Alice and equity at the forefront with some of the trends that I noticed that they are critical, that they tie together with some of the issues that we are all dealing with. Yes, we talk about asset management. Yes, we talk about resilience, but really when you hear the information from Alice and from the Moonshot projects, it really brings things together why we are doing what we are doing. And the importance of making sure that we don't have any forgotten communities as we move things forward.
Mhm. Well, one of the things I noticed was, from the period, pre-pandemic gatherings, as people were implementing TPM and TAM, that a lot of the questions that were asked after presentations were fairly kind of high level in nature, kind of more curiosity based. And I thought at the sessions we had that there were very specific questions, technical detail type questions, which to me reflected that people are actually they're engaged in the practice much more than they had, that the maturity of practice has really increased. I asked Frances Harrison, my colleague who had gone to all the data sessions, what her observation was, and she said that she thought that at the data sessions that she really saw a critical mass of states who are really working on data management. In the past, there were only 1 or 2 states who were doing data governance plans or things related, but now there are 15, 20 states working on it and sharing things, and that you really saw the exchange of practice and knowledge with each other being so vibrant and valuable, and really was a indicator of, that there has to be continued focus on this kind of gatherings to have the exchange. So anyhow, all really, points to the planning committee, and kudos to the people who organized this, that it was a very successful event. So then how about, and this is like open to everybody, but we'll start with the people on the panel is, did you see any one thing that, that someone shared a practice, or, that you weren't aware of, that you took away and said, wow, I think, we heard about Alice. That was clearly something that people took back with them and will add value. But, did you see something that kind of wowed you? Who wants to go first? No, nothing jumps out as, okay, Ryan.
I can jump in.
Okay.
I attended the Complete Streets workshop on Monday and attended several other safety related things. I think one of the, as Jessica mentioned, we are also kind of looking to walk down the path of Complete Streets at our DOT, and it's something that, affects a lot of different areas. It has, huge implications. There's, greater emphasis in federal programs on these things. And so there was a lot of usefulness there for us. In fact, it even came up in an unconference session where we were talking about freight planning. The idea of providing sort of a complete sort of, user-friendly, I guess, experience for pedestrians, truck drivers getting out of their trucks, going into, facilities and parking facilities and things like that. And so this concept of, complete street and how to put that into use in at your DOT was something that was super useful to me. So that was just one thing, safety topics and complete streets.
Mm-hmm. Luanne.
Yes, the Oregon Department of Transportation's effort on data literacy is wow. They are working with the whole state. It's not just the DOT, so it's going to be pushed out to all of their state agencies. The work that they've done to get where they're at is just amazing. In fact, Denise Dahlke talked about it a lot on our first day, and I think we were all had our jaws down, asking for can you send us your plan? Can tell us how you did it? So that was a wow effort.
Cool. One of the things that I noted was I loved hearing that Utah DOT is using the portals, the AASHTO portals that Matt was showing, and using some of the NCHRP resources to further their practice, and using the TAM guide and using the TAM data assistant, and so that was very, cool on multiple fronts, that we're seeing research being implemented and used, and hopefully others will be able to take that away and learn from their practice. Matt.
One thing I saw that I thought was pretty interesting. I got the opportunity to attend one of the breakfast meetings on professional development. I think it was on Wednesday, and Spencer Stevens from Federal Highway was there talking about the incredible amount of resources that they have available for professional development through the planning site on Federal Highway, and they've got a wealth of information resources available that I think it was very impressive to me, kind of what was available, and kind of gave me some great thoughts about some ways that we might be able to expand the resources that are available on the asset management and the CPBM side to help support our community as well.
Yeah, great. All right.
I'll go real quick.
Yeah.
There were many kind of like, oh wow moments for me. And I guess my overarching kind of takeaway was that we need to participate in more conferences like this and be more involved in AASHTO, because it is such a good resource. And that's I was a little, I think I said this at some point, but it's both depressing and very inspiring to go to conferences like this, especially this one, because I realize like how far behind we are in New Mexico with a lot of these things. But like I walked away just like, wow, okay, I'm inspired to kind of tackle some of these things and take them on and bring them back to our DOTs. So I guess that's my overall comment.
Thanks, Jessica. Andrew. We can't hear you. Let's see.
How's that? No?
You're unmuted, but we still can't hear you.
No, I can hear him.
You can.
Yep.
Okay. Sorry about that if it's not working well. I just real briefly, great conference. It was great to see a lot of people in person who I had mostly been doing Zoom meetings with for years. So that was really great, including many people that are on their camera right now. One thing I just wanted to note was the session on equity and accessibility performance measures was really interesting. And in particular, the work that Andrew Owen was doing in the University of Minnesota, talking about the Accessibility Observatory and how it's just such a different way of thinking about transportation in the sense that access is a property of a location and it's mode agnostic, and that looking at how does access respond to either infrastructure or land use changes. So it's just a very interesting topic, and hopefully something that state DOTs can begin to use more and sort of figure out how that helps with complete streets and other work like that. So, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. I think we'll all have to go and watch the video of that session. And maybe that could be a future session topic. Kind of moving on with this kind of, exemplary practice is, do any of you have observations from the conference on which agencies are doing the best at making good decisions with all of the resources people have, available to them? Does anybody have a thought on, in the
I don't know how to answer that without sounding either braggy or putting down my own agency. So I don't know that I can.
So well, that sounds like, Deanna, are you saying you felt like Minnesota is on the advanced front?
Well, here's the thing. I always think we could do better, but after what Jessica just said, maybe we are. So that was, and I was happy that Andy brought up when I didn't answer the other question, since I put together a session that turned out to have 2 out of 4 Minnesota examples. I didn't know how exactly, I was just amazed by this stuff my state's doing. So anyway, just a little levity, but I don't know how to answer, Hannah.
Okay, no, I mean, part of it is in terms of, if people thought, have an opinion on that, it also makes the rest of us all be able to pay attention, and curate to that resource better.
Well, I would just like to say that I'm always impressed with Washington DOT and Minnesota DOT, but Carrie Wohler from is just, in every session she presented on, I was just kind of blown away by some of the concepts and how they're implementing them and, integrating them into different things. The Complete Streets session that she presented on, and also I would say Florida DOT also really wowed me at the Complete Streets workshop with some of the things they're doing, considering the current political environment. And, I was impressed by that. But yeah, I think, and Colorado DOT, William, and all the resiliency stuff is just great. But I guess I would like to say too that, in our Complete Streets, one of our sessions or presentations there, I think it was Kentucky DOT, and they, were very honest that they're just starting out with Complete Streets, and trying to figure out how to do it. And I think there are a lot of states that have set the bar really high on some of these things, but the fact that that we're all kind of working on these things and each in a different place, but I think it's just representative of the diversity of kind of the DOTs and our states across the country, and the fact that we can have a conference like this and pull in kind of these different states and how everybody's in a different place is good, and so we can all learn from each other. Sharing is caring, right?
Yeah. Thanks, Jessica. That was a great way to end the discussion, and thank you to everyone who shared your opinions and learnings. And I'm going to turn it over to Christos.
I need to unmute as well, not just turn my camera on. So thank you, Yana, and a huge thank you to Lori, who's been helping with the notes as we've been going through this. So after practically a full week of meetings in Providence and the last hour and a half, let me try and bring a summary of what we heard, just a few sentences. So it actually takes a village and a great team to bring things together. And bringing a diverse perspective on the planning team is important if you're going to address a lot of diverse topics and create a program that people like. Sharing is caring. You probably hear us say that time and time again, because there is no reason for all of us to start from the beginning if someone has already helped us get to, to a good place already. The material from the conference is available on the TPM portal. If you have a hard time downloading through Dropbox, please let us know. Partnerships are important and critical. Personal interactions are also very important. Then looking on the TPM track, on the TPM implementation, emerging areas and visioning for the future. And thank you, Deanna, for putting them together in those three buckets. Some of the things that that we heard. Again, the conference site is a great resource for sharing information and teachings. The learnings in the TPM range from current practices to emerging areas to envisioning the future. And we'd like to learn more about the Moonshot Vision. So stay tuned on that because we heard it a couple of times. We'll work with NCHRP and see if we can plan a webinar in the future dedicated again to the Moonshot and bring that great information to a wider audience. From the planning track, ALICE framework is an important tool to employ in addressing equity. Some of the things that we heard, planning for people and users is important. Scenario planning sessions were great, especially Washington DOT and Kansas presentations. Rough roads are important to people who can't afford newer vehicles. So that actually ties together with equity. It goes to the concept of ALICE. Context-based design, where we need more information about rural options. Envisioning the future and critical partnerships are emerging as we look towards the future of transportation. The median income correlates with pedestrian safety, and the linkage between asset management plans and rest in peace plans, resilience improvement plans, and the work that Colorado DOT has been doing far ahead of a lot of us. Great work on the unconference sessions. A lot of people thought those were very valuable. From the asset management track, some of these great sessions would be great topics for future webinars, well taken. Relationships between TAMS and TPM and part of good asset management and the TPM PR exchange were also great. Data-related issues for asset management and the future of asset management are very important. And again, we go into choose your own conference and many good sessions during that. The Thursday workshop, the digital time guide workshop was really great. This is a new enhanced resource, so check it out, please. And then looking at the asset management PR exchange, especially on resilience, more discussion will be coming on this topic, including action steps, research, capacity building, that's going to be part of the asset management PR exchange. From the data track, the data committee was really happy to participate, and we were actually very happy to have them there. So we started with data literacy workshop and continue with data for decision-making sessions, which were very valuable. What do you need? What is good enough? What do you do with your data and what you don't need? Data strategies and data planning sessions were very valuable. This is a gap area for some of the agencies. Data governance workshop on Friday was extremely valuable as well, talking about tools, master data management, and other topics. There were some great state presentations. We need to nudge Matt for bigger rooms for data sessions. We'll keep that in mind for the 2024 conference. So we hope the data committee is welcome at the next one. You'll always be. And we want to talk about the 7 data principles next. So some of the trends and other observations as Yana was facilitating the questions. We saw many new faces and many new names and faces at the events. And how do we make our efforts sustainable with so much turnover? And really, this goes to the heart of why we do the PR exchanges and the conferences and share information. The related to this is the need opportunities to continue to learn, know who to call if you have a question, how to make this a shared community, and looking ahead at the emerging and future performance measures. One of the trends that we are seeing is resilience. Bill funding is very difficult to manage with short staffing. We all love the new categories and the extra funding that we've received, but we have not staffed up to address that yet. And it came out in a lot of the sessions that we were in. Flexible workforce is needed. Joint conference underlined the importance of the new concepts to many disciplines. Turnover, want access to data, but don't know how to get it. So a lot of people have to self-serve and find the one source of truth. There were many synergies between the groups, which was really great to see, particularly, which means that the organizing committee did a really great job of bringing things together. Equity is a huge issue. How are we adapting and incorporating into decision-making? From federal highway similarities, connectivity, similarity in challenges and concerns of FTA, federal highway, and state DOT, not just in the area of highway, but in the area of transit, also trying to connect these three communities. Again, we're gonna go back to sharing is caring and bringing people together to share this knowledge and brainstorming together. It helps to gel around discussions and topics that we are finding people passionate about. Moonshot analysis across all three disciplines. This is why I mentioned earlier about looking to design a new webinar in the future around moonshot analysis, because both of these seemed like they captured a lot of our attention. Questions asked during the conference sessions were very specific with technical types of questions. People seem to be really engaged in the practice. And the one trend that we have seen is that the maturity of the practice has greatly increased. There's critical mass of states working on data management. Continued focus on shared experience needs to happen for this maturity to continue. And we need to be looking at new and innovative practices. The Complete Streets workshop on Monday, the safety sessions, the creating a user-friendly experience for pedestrians were also very well received. The Oregon data literacy efforts was something that was highlighted. Also the Utah DOT using AASHTO portals and some of the NCHRP resources, using the TAM guide, and how to move forward and identify the right research, but more importantly, putting the research results into practice. A lot of federal highway professional development resources, and how can the Committee on Performance-Based Management use these resources and make it available to our membership. We need to participate in more conferences like this, and AASHTO is a great resource for this. The session on equity and accessibility performance, and knowing that access is more agnostic from Andrew, and how does it respond to land use changes? So, and of course, we all know the great DOTs that they participate and who is doing really well. I'm not going to go over that. But just some of the next steps as we look to wrap up in the next couple of minutes. One, what is the Committee on Performance-Based Management leadership doing right now is, as we, look for the lessons that we learned from Providence, we are already looking and start thinking about 2024 and even 2026. In talking with Matt, we would really like to get into a nice scheduling calendar where we can have locations selected early on and get the planning process started sooner than later. For that reason, and please, I would like to see a few hands up or at least email us. We are accepting expressions of interest for the next two conferences, but more particularly for 2024, as we need to plan that one first. And, and like I said, if any of you from any state DOT have any ideas or you are interested in hosting, please send Matt and I an email and let us know. That way we can bring it up with the leadership of the Committee on Performance-Based Management, and and we can actually start putting it together. So with that, thanks again for joining us today for the webinar. Just as a note, the next webinar will be held on March 15th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And the topic will be maximizing safety outcomes. And it's going to build upon the overview of the TAM webinar next week. Caltrans is taking two topics that they are very high, not just on the Federal Highway priority list, but on every single DOT, safety and asset management. And they are showing how to think about together a plan for TPM1 on which is the safety performance measures, and maximizing outcomes using performance management in a safety context. Our entire schedule for both the transportation performance management and transportation asset management webinars for 2023 is now available on the TPM portal. Huge thank you again to the organizing committee for these, to SpyPort partners, Deanna and Lori and their staff for their support, and very importantly to Matt Harty, to Kyla and Penelope for all of the work that they have done, and to our federal partners. Huge thank you to everyone. So with that, if we don't have anything else, we'll let us go, and looking forward to seeing you at the TAP webinars and then at the next webinar in March as well.